All right, hello everybody. My name is Sierra Graul, and I work in parent and family programs here at Utah State. And today I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about living at home, and talk about some resources and some information that we have for family members who have students living at home for their first semester. So, the first thing that I wanted to go over is our on-campus waitlist. Whether your student is on the waitlist or not, I think it's helpful to go over this just so you know if they ever do want to sign up for on-campus housing. Right now, there's currently a waitlist, but you can just go to our housing website and sign up for housing. This QR code is what I simply was like the most that I wanted to talk about today. This is how to purchase a housing contract that is for sale. It's contracts for students who signed up to live on campus and then did not drop their housing before the deadline to get a refund, but are still not coming to Utah State. And so instead of the wait list, this website is really helpful for students to find housing maybe a little bit quicker. It really just depends on if people are selling their housing contracts, but I don't think it's something that a lot of people are aware of, so I did want to point that out here today. But you can contact our housing office if you do have more questions about on-campus housing, about the wait list, about purchasing a contract, whatever it may be, if you do have questions about that. Secondly, I wanted to talk about the benefits of living at home. And I think I won't spend too much time on this because if your student is living at home, I'm guessing that they or you are probably already aware of some of the benefits of living at home. But it really is cost efficient. You're maybe saving a little bit money on rent, even if your student is still paying rent for living at home. Hopefully, it's a little bit cheaper than something that they would find on campus or off campus. And so that's amazing. The transition to college from high school or just like life after high school in general can be difficult. And so to have a family environment and support for that student like a little bit closer is really helpful. And it's good to have familiarity for your student when so much is changing around their school and maybe their work and their homework load and things like that. It's nice to have some support that they know is available to them at all times. But I also wanted to just talk about how they have access to all of campus resources. I think sometimes students living at home forget that they have just as many resources available to them as students who are living on campus or students who are living off campus. And so there is a lot of resources available to you and your student, but two that I wanted to talk about today was CAPS and then our conversational space makers. So CAPS stands for Counseling and Preventative Services, and it's here at Utah State, and they offer short-term therapy, they offer support groups, they offer workshops, they offer crisis management, or they can help get you connected to providers within Logan if you're not already aware of those resources. So even though your student might have more support because they are living at home, the transition is still difficult, and sometimes students need a little bit of extra help or a place to talk it out that isn't at home. And so please make sure that they know about CAPS and that they are utilizing that resource. The second one that I wanted to talk about was conversational space makers. And this I think is a really underutilized resource here at Utah State, but these are students who are trained by a faculty member in our communication studies department on how to make space for difficult conversations. So I usually like to recommend this to students that are living off campus because they don't have somebody to kind of mediate between their roommate relationships. But if you think about it, your student also has roommates. They just look a little bit different. And so if you notice that there might be some tension or some things that you need to talk through with your student, maybe sending them to the conversational space makers first could be really helpful, because then somebody else can get your student prepared to have that conversation with you or whoever it may be, so that they are ready to be more productive when you do talk to them about whatever you need to talk to them about. So those are some of the benefits, but also some campus resources that I wanted to um, specifically point out. There are also some parts of living at home that are a little bit more difficult. Like there's some difficulties for living at home. And so I'm going to hit on all of these more in depth later on, but just like an overview of them, we're going to talk about transportation. We're going to talk about getting and staying involved on campus. And then we're going to talk about family expectations a little bit. So, first of all, transportation. Does your student have a car? And if they do, then great. We're going to talk about parking passes in just a second. But if they do not have a car, what are their means of actually getting to class? And so you'll get a handbook sent to you. This is what that page 26 is. But we do have some resources available around Logan and at Utah State to help students get where they need to go. So first of all is the Connect buses. If you're not familiar, these are city buses that run around the valley and can pick people up and drop them off closer to campus. So if your student doesn't have a car, a Connect bus is a great way to get where they need to go. The Aggie Shuttle is also nice. This is our busing system specifically for campus. And so the Aggie Shuttle runs all over campus. It's great if you live pretty close and your student just needs a ride like up Old Main Hill, but it's also great to get from one class to another, especially if they're a little bit further apart. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about Aggie Blue Bikes. This is a resource on campus where students can rent out bikes for an entire semester and really ride those around campus. So it's a little bit more tricky to do that if your student is from the valley, but maybe like a little further away than close to campus. But it could be a nice resource for them to use. They also provide tools to fix up bikes and make sure that they're running like properly. And so Aggie Blue Bikes is a great resource for your student to use. And then lastly, your student will need, if they do have a car on campus, they will get a commuter parking pass. And so this is at parking.usu.edu. And once your student purchases that, it is tagged to their license plate. And so they don't need like something to hang in their car or anything. It will be directly through the license plate of their car. But you can purchase a commuter parking pass, and then that way your student can have somewhere to park on campus if they are driving every day. And you can find more information on that by contacting our parking office or at parking.usu.edu. All right, now I'm going to jump into involvement a little bit. So, um, I really highly recommend for you to encourage your student to make connections outside people from their high school or people that they already know from the valley that also might be sticking around. Um, while that is good and it's good to have like people that are available to and close to you, that you already know, I still think it's a lot easier to feel connected to campus and to Utah State as a student if you know people and have friends and connections with people that are actually on campus with you and have come to Utah State. So a really good way to do that is through taking in-person classes and going to study groups. I've heard from quite a few students that are living at home that they just do some online classes so that they can work more or they don't have to drive in every day. But really, if you can encourage your student to get some in-person classes, that is like the easiest way to go in and talk to people and do group work and make sure that they're actually making connections within Utah State. Um, and then these are three other resources that I did want to point out. So clubs, you can find this at our involvement website, but Utah State has so many clubs about anything that your student could want to do. And they're a little bit of an easier way to get involved if your student is nervous about going to big events or talking to a lot of people. Usually clubs are a little bit more tight-knit and they're about like a specific interest that your student has. So it's a great way for them to get their foot in the door of meeting new people on a maybe a smaller scale. And if there isn't a club that your student likes, they could easily make one. And so that's like a really awesome resource and way to get involved there. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is Aggie Blue Leadership and Connections. So Connections is our first year experience course. It's connections.usu.edu, but we highly recommend that your student register for this class. It is 2 credits and it helps them become helps them understand what it means to be a lifelong learner, but it also helps them make connections to incoming students as well. And so there's two different ways you can take the connections class. One is the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before school starts. It is from 9 to 4. They're in class all of that time, but then um, that's like the entire class. That's the only part that they actually have to be in person for. The rest is a few online assignments throughout the first 7 weeks of class. The other way that you can take connections is actually a 7 week version where they're in class twice a week for the first 7 weeks of the semester. And it's more like scheduled like a regular class where they go in every week and have that class time. But if they do take that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before school starts, the Monday and Tuesday before school starts is Aggie Blue Leadership. And so that is where this QR code, let me move this over here. Um, but that is where this QR code comes in. Um, this is a leadership conference put on by current students at the university that are involved in leadership. And so it's a really great way for students to get to know all the leadership opportunities and involvement opportunities on campus, but also make connections with people who are doing that right now and kind of know the lay of the land and can help explain things a little bit clearer to them. And so those are three ways that I would recommend that your incoming students get involved, even though they are living at home and may already feel like they have a community within Logan. And then there's changing family dynamics, right? And I'm not going to spend too much time on this because um, these are maybe some conversations that if you have questions, I would encourage you to call into our office and we can help talk you through that. But there are conversations that I think are very important to have before the school year actually starts to make sure that you and your student are on the same page with the expectations that you have and that they have for living at home. And so these are just a few questions that we get asked a lot, or we know that sometimes family members and students conflict with during the school year if they're not talked about before. But are you expecting your student to pay you rent? If so, how much? If so, do they know that? Are you expecting them to like do cooking and do cleaning and do household responsibilities? Or not really anymore? Do they have a curfew? Do they know what that is? Are they okay with that curfew? Are you still expecting them to do things with their siblings, like drop them off at events or take them to work or whatever it may be? Do you want them to have a job while they're living at home? Do they know that? Do they know how to get a job? These are all things that are really important to be thinking about and talking about early. Um, and so some of our space makers can help you have these conversations. But please call into our office if you do have questions about this or you're not sure how to talk about some of these things. Um, but I think having conversations early makes the transition into school a lot easier. Um, One of my really good friends, she is actually from Logan and lived at home her entire college career, and she is has recently graduated, and so we asked her for some tips about living at home, for you and your student. And so she gave us a few things to be aware of and to add into this presentation of tips from a student that has actually lived at home. And so the first thing that she said was to get involved as much as possible. And we already talked about this, but I think it just really reiterates how important that involvement piece is. She was involved in the herd. Um, that is our student section on campus where every student is a part of the herd and can go to events and be there. But there's also leadership opportunities involved in that. And she was on the leadership for the herd. And this was like the perfect amount of involvement for her. And it worked really well with her schedule. And she really liked the other people that were doing it. And so it can be something as simple as that to make sure that your student is getting involved. Secondly, she's talked about strategically setting up her schedule. So she would think about how early she actually wanted to commute. She lived in Hiram, so she had a little bit longer of a drive. It was about 15 minutes. Um, She thought about if she wanted longer breaks to do homework on campus or if she just wanted to be able to get home. And then she thought about her other commitments. So, did she have a job that she had to get to? Did she have friends that lived closer to campus that she knew she was going to be seeing a lot? Things like that. So, if your student is hasn't already thought about how they want to set up their schedule, I would encourage them to look into that a little bit because moving some classes around and creating blocks or getting rid of blocks can help them not have to drive around so much and come back and forth, or help them get their homework done in a more reasonable amount of time. It can just be really beneficial. And then the last thing that she said was consider getting a meal plan. And we do have a video from dining, so it might be best to watch that if you have questions. But we do have block meal plans, which are you can buy like a certain number of swipes, and then each one of those swipes will get you into one of our eateries on campus or one of our dining locations. We also have something called dining dollars, where you can load money onto your student's ID card and they can use it sort of like a debit card on campus and use that to buy food. So I would just also make sure that your student is thinking about how they are going to stay fed while they're on campus, especially if they're here for a long amount of time and they don't have time to go home. Are they realistically going to pack a lunch every single day or pack breakfast or dinner or whatever it may be? Or do they need a way to eat on campus that's a little bit more cost effective while also making sure that they stay fed? Um, so that's some advice from a student that has actually lived at home, and hopefully that's helpful for you and your student when you're thinking about this. And then I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about off-campus housing as well. So maybe it's not this semester, but maybe it's sometime in the future your student will want to move out of your house and live off campus. So this QR code will take you to our off-campus housing website. Um, Sometimes, depending on the time of year, it has apartments that are close to campus that Utah State knows are available. So not Utah State apartments that are owned by the school, but apartments that are kind of close. And it has like the whether it's a male or female dorm, where is it, how much it costs, all things like that. And so it's a really nice website to use if you are trying to find off-campus housing. And so I would recommend taking a look at that. But then everything on the other side, working with landlords, Logan City occupancy limits, all of that kind of stuff. If you're not super familiar with this, or this is your first student that you're sending off to live by themselves, this website has a lot of detailed notes and things to help you understand better, like the rules and regulations of renting in Logan. And so I would recommend taking a look at that, at least to know where to get started and what to be aware of, because I do think that that is a really helpful resource for you when your student's getting ready to move off campus and out of your home. And then lastly, I just wanted to give you our contact information. There's not necessarily anybody at Utah State that is specifically here to help students that are living at home. But this is something that we are in parent and family programs have a lot of conversations about and feel equipped to have more conversations about. And so you can schedule a meeting with us at parents.usu.edu. You can give us a call or send us an email. And then I would also recommend joining our Parent and Family Connection. This is our newsletter that will be sent to you every 2 weeks. And it just has a lot of really good updates and information about parent and family programs, but also just about what's going on at Utah State in general. And so it's a really good way for you to stay connected to campus as well while your student is here. But thank you again for coming. Well, thank you again for listening, and please let us know if you have any questions.